First, to Kathleen's point about equating this to Lisa Raitt's inappropriate comments, these aren't inappropriate comments. This is an admission that a hallmark policy of this government is flawed. And Dan just did it again, admitted that this is about politics in specific regions.
So Brown Richard Nixon was the topic of conversation again today, but I want to focus on Laryssa Waler, the rare gem that points out the hypocrisy of liberals on CTV. She directly points out the stupidity of Kathleen Monk and Dan Moulton. Kathleen tries to tie conservative mistakes into the conversation, and Dan attempts to frame Brown Richard Nixon as brave for standing up for himself in Parliament. What? These two minions put together wouldn't make a single brain cell. But Laryssa calls them both out directly and then totally calls out the authoritarian gun grab by mocking them for fear-mongering AR-15s. Enjoy this interview and be sure to leave a like on the video to help me in the algorithm. Consider subscribing, it's totally free, unlike your right to bear arms.
Is this leaked audio a fatal blow for this minister?
No, I don't think so. What I would say is he's handling this crisis relatively well. This is obviously an embarrassing moment for him, and it's unfortunate it happened. He fully acknowledges that and has said we all have conversations that we wouldn't want recorded and released without our knowledge. And I think he is handling it as directly and as hands-on as he can. He's standing up in question period. He's taking the blows. He's here in your studio taking the tough questions on a day that he didn't have to be. So I think he deserves some credit for keeping his chin up and moving forward with this. The reality is I think we're still having the debate on the policy that we would be having whether or not this leaked audio existed or not. This was the fight that the Liberals knew they were going to be in with the Conservatives. And I think politically it's a fight that they want, right? Like they promised to bring forward this program, and they are bringing forward this program because it resonates with their voters and it resonates in important parts of this country for the Liberals politically, right? Like we are talking about that. We're acknowledging that the importance of this program in Quebec, the support that it has in Quebec, is a really strong political element to this conversation, and I don't think we should ignore that. This is the debate we were going to be having otherwise, and it's the debate the Liberals want to be having.
There were quite a few people, for example, associated with the terrible Danforth shooting who were expressing disappointment at the way in which the comments came through from that leaked recording. So in that vein, I wonder if there's a bit of vulnerability.
Yeah, but then conversely, you saw Natalie Provost stand right beside him, a victim of the massacre. You saw Paulie Souvent put out press releases in support of the action, in fact, encouraging greater steps upon the government. I think in situations like this, when a cabinet minister gets in trouble, leaked comments or things get spilt. I remember Andy Scott, who was on a plane. He was Solicitor General at the time. He made some inappropriate comments about an APEC investigation and the RCMP. He didn't resign right away, but eventually the calls for his resignation led to his resignation. But similarly, you just had Lisa Raitt on your panel just the other day, and she, told the story of her own time that she had to offer her resignation to Prime Minister Harper because of her inappropriate comments, and he refused it, and she stood on. She stood on to fight. And I think what Dan was pointing to was a little bit of a different tenor or stance of the Liberal government today. They've been accused for the last couple of weeks of really not getting their message together, not really coming out fighting, not being on that offensive tone. And frankly, 90% of the questions in question period today were calling for the Minister of Public Safety's resignation. And he took about 50% of them. But we also saw a lot of his other caucus members stand up, like Buckley Boulanger, who was a great spokesperson in the House, a Northern Saskatchewan Indigenous man who took on that rural Canadian identity and spoke to the issue about why this gun ban and replacement needs to come into place. And so, I don't know, I kind of saw a little fight in them today. But I agree with you that the headline is absolutely horrible, and to come out so strategically on the day of the day before the launch, I mean, a coup to the folks who on the other side of this debate who put that out and really tried to kind of torpedo it from the get-go.
The anti-gun lobby. Let's
anti-gun
name
lobby.
It.
Exactly.
This is directly related to that group's efforts to try and stop this.
Okay, Laryssa, let me get your take on how this is unfolded and where you think it goes.
I have so much to say about this in so little time. First, to Kathleen's point about equating this to Lisa Raitt's inappropriate comments. These aren't inappropriate comments. This is an admission that a hallmark policy of this government is flawed. It's a solution that doesn't actually even remotely address the problem of crime. And the minister is desperate for Canadians to think that everybody's wandering around with an AR-15. It could have been a drinking game, sincerely, of how many times he said AR-15, that he wants everyone to think, they're everywhere. Oh my God, I'm going to be so scared. We have a crime problem. We have a bail problem. We have an illegal gun problem. We have a leaky border problem. None of this addresses that. And it's so much money spent on a policy that won't fix the actual problem. And he himself, and Dan just did it again, admitted that this is about politics in specific regions. So do a carve out in Quebec. Bring this policy out in Quebec. We do so many other carve-outs for Quebec, but don't impose it across the country. It's a waste of money. And calling for the minister's resignation. Sure, he should resign, right? Like he was sloppy. He wasn't careful with his words. But really, he was honest. And I think honestly, conservatives should just call for more ministers to be honest about this god-awful policy.
Since CTV is too lazy to put up statistics, I'll do it. Here's the truth about gun crimes in Canada. This is all from StatCan, so anybody can look it up themselves, even CTV. So if you look at the light blue section at the very bottom, those are all victims of police-reported violent crime, of people who were injured by a weapon that causes the injuries. So all the way from 2009 to 2022, it looks like it's, steadily pretty much around the same area. But it's a very, very, put this into perspective. There are more crimes in Canada committed by burning liquid than a firearm. So I guess they could just shut down every coffee shop in the country or ban people from being able to boil their water. And then the other one is knives or sharp objects. Look at how big that is. Are they going to start taking people's knives and forks away from them? I mean, that would actually legitimately probably do a lot better than taking away everybody's guns. In a large majority, 91%, of solved shooting homicides, the accused did not have a valid license for the classification of firearm that was used. More specifically, the accused had a valid license in 9.1% of homicides involving a handgun and 11% of homicides involving a rifle or shotgun. Nearly half of all shooting homicides were related to confirmed or suspected organized crime or street gang activity. Now, sure, there are people who commit gun crimes in Canada. So why not focus on the people committing the crimes as opposed to the weapons they use? Nearly half of the homicides are committed by people involved in organized crime. Criminals should be locked up, libs. Your silly catch and release program. According to these stats, nearly 2/3 of persons accused in firearm-related homicides had a prior conviction. Jeez. Even this crazy right-wing extremist could figure that out. How about the US border? You take care of the criminals and stop the flow of illegal weapons through our border, and there you go. You'll put a dent in gun crime. And the remaining gun crimes in our country, maybe it's all those ones that you let slip through the cracks. So ramp up the police in our country. Take that $750 million and pay the people who protect our communities, the officers and border agents. And hey, you may even get some positive news from your communities for once. But that's not what liberals want. They need a movement to feel relevant. They need to always be viewed like they're the most compassionate people that fight for everyone else's rights. Bunch of narcissistic goblins. Sometimes I wish that they would just allow all guns to be banned in the entire country for a year. Take them all, and then watch as it makes zero difference in gun crime. But liberals' minds are so poisoned that they would just excuse it as lingering right-wing extremism that needs to be destroyed. I'm so over these liberals. They want to take our guns, take our free speech, take our basic liberties. It's getting harder and harder not to leave this communist shithole, but I won't, because I believe that our country can come back from this.